Have you ever planned the perfect revenge so quietly that the person who destroyed you had no idea what was coming? This is the story of how my husband walked into my 50th birthday party holding hands with his secret family, the wife and two children I'd never seen before. After 28 years of marriage, he thought he was finally coming clean. What he didn't know was that I'd discovered his double life 6 months earlier, and I'd been planning this moment ever since. My name is Catherine. I'm 50 years old. This is the story of how I destroyed the man who lived two lives. I met Richard when I was 21. He was 25, charming, ambitious, worked in corporate sales. We fell in love fast, married within a year, built a beautiful life together. Or so I thought. We had one daughter, Emma. She's 26 now, lives in Seattle, works in tech. Richard and I had what everyone called the perfect marriage. Big house in the suburbs, regular vacations, dinner parties with friends. 28 years of what I believed was partnership and love. The cracks started showing 2 years ago. Small things at first. Richard traveling more for work, 3 or 4 days at a time, always to the same city, Denver. Said he was managing a new regional office, training staff, building client relationships. I never questioned it. Why would I? We'd been married 26 years. I trusted him completely. Then the phone calls started, late at night. He'd step outside to take them, said it was work emergencies, clients in different time zones. I believed him. Then came the credit card statement I wasn't supposed to see. Charges in Denver I didn't recognize. A jewelry store, $1,500. I asked him about it. Anniversary gift, he said. For me. Wanted to surprise me. Our anniversary was 6 months away. But okay. Maybe he was planning ahead. Then Emma came home for Christmas, asked her dad about his new project in Denver. Richard went pale. What project? The one you've been working on. You mentioned it last time we talked. I don't remember saying that. You did, Dad. You said you were building something important there. He changed the subject quickly, but I'd seen his face. Panic. For just a second. That's when I knew something was wrong. I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Tracking his phone location when he said he was traveling. He'd turn off location services. But sometimes he'd forget. I'd see him in residential neighborhoods in Denver. Not downtown near the office. Not hotels. Suburban areas. I hired a private investigator in January. His name was Marcus, retired detective. Ran a small agency. I told him everything. He said he'd seen cases like this before. Usually the answer was simpler than people thought. 2 weeks later, Marcus called me, asked me to come to his office, alone. I knew before he said anything. The look on his face told me everything. Mrs. Anderson, I have some difficult information. Just tell me. Your husband has been maintaining a second residence in Denver. He lives there part-time with a woman named Jennifer Miller and their 2 children, a boy aged 12 and a girl aged 9. The room spun. 2 children, 12 and 9 years old. That meant he'd been with her for at least 13 years, more than a decade of lies. Marcus showed me the evidence. Photos of Richard leaving a house in a Denver suburb, Jennifer waiting at the door, kissing him hello, photos of him at soccer games, at parent-teacher conferences, at the grocery store pushing a cart with Jennifer and the kids. He looked happy, relaxed, like a regular dad doing regular family things. School enrollment forms. Both kids listed Richard Anderson as their father. Emergency contact. Same phone number he'd always had. Birth certificates. Richard listed as father on both. Medical records. Richard's insurance covering both children. Property records. The Denver house was in both their names. Richard and Jennifer, purchased 11 years ago. I sat in Marcus's office for 2 hours, looking at the evidence, trying to understand how I'd missed this, how he'd managed to maintain 2 complete families for over a decade. Marcus explained the logistics. Richard's job in corporate sales gave him flexibility. The Denver trips weren't lies. He really did have business there, but he'd expanded them. 3 days a week in Denver, 4 days a week at home. Jennifer thought he traveled for work, thought he was managing accounts across multiple cities, that he had to be in Chicago and Atlanta and Phoenix. She didn't know about me any more than I knew about her. I asked Marcus to keep investigating. I needed to know everything before I confronted Richard. I needed leverage. Marcus spent 3 more months digging. He found financial records. Richard had been funneling money to Denver for years, not from our joint accounts. From a separate business account I didn't know existed. He'd been claiming the Denver house as a business expense. Tax fraud. He found insurance policies. Richard had life insurance policies on both Jennifer and me. Different beneficiaries. If I died, Emma got everything. If Jennifer died, the Denver kids got everything. He found school records. Richard attended every major event for the Denver kids. Christmases, birthdays, school plays, soccer tournaments. Always when he told me he was traveling for work. He found social media. Jennifer's Facebook was private, but Marcus got access through a mutual friend request. Photos going back 12 years. Richard at her sister's wedding. Richard holding the baby boy in the hospital. Richard teaching the girl to ride a bike. All labeled with dates. All from times he'd told me he was on business trips. The evidence was overwhelming. Richard hadn't just had an affair. He'd built an entire second life, a second family, 2 children he'd fathered and raised, a house he owned, a woman he'd been with for 13 years, and he'd managed to keep it hidden from everyone. I didn't confront him immediately. I wanted to scream and throw things and demand answers, but I didn't. Instead, I started planning. My 50th birthday was 4 months away, May 15th. I'd been planning a party for months, small gathering, close friends, family. Richard had insisted we do something big, said I deserved it. Now I knew why. Guilt. I kept planning the party, but I changed the guest list, added Marcus, the private investigator, added my lawyer, added Emma, who I'd told everything, and I decided to invite Jennifer and the Denver kids. Through Marcus, I tracked down Jennifer's contact information. I created an anonymous email account, sent her a message. Jennifer Miller. You don't know me, but I know Richard Anderson, the man you've been with for 13 years, the father of your 2 children. He's been lying to you. He has another family, a wife of 28 years, a daughter. He's been living a double life. I know this sounds insane, but I have proof. Photos, documents, financial records. I want to meet with you before you confront him. I want us to both know the full truth. Then we can decide together how to handle this. If you're willing to meet, reply to this email. I'll arrange everything. 2 days later, she replied, Who is this? I don't believe you. Richard wouldn't do this. I sent her photos. Richard and me at our daughter's college graduation. Richard and me on our anniversary trip to Italy last year. Richard and me at Christmas with Emma, all recent, all clearly showing him wearing his wedding ring, the same ring he wore in her photos with him. She called me 3 hours later. Her voice was shaking. Is this real? Yes. You're his wife. Yes. 28 years. He never told me. He told me you didn't exist. He told me he'd been divorced, that he had a daughter from a previous marriage, but you and he had split years ago, that he was free. I'm not divorced. We're very much married. I've been paying our mortgage and bills and planning our retirement for 3 decades. How is this possible? We met 2 weeks later, at a coffee shop halfway between Denver and my city. I brought Emma for support. Jennifer brought her sister. We sat down and laid out everything. Our timelines matched perfectly. Richard had been maintaining both relationships simultaneously for 13 years. Every trip to Denver, every late-night phone call, every mysterious expense. All of it was for Jennifer and the kids. Jennifer cried. I didn't. I'd already processed the grief. Now I was just angry. Her sister asked what we were going to do. I had a plan. Jennifer listened, agreed. Emma looked terrified but supportive. 3 weeks before my birthday, I told Richard I wanted him to invite some colleagues to the party, people from his Denver office. Said it would be nice to meet the team he'd been working with. He looked nervous but agreed. I sent the formal invitation to Jennifer, made it look professional, addressed to Richard Anderson and family. Black tie event, May 15th at 7 p.m. My home address. She confirmed she'd attend, told Richard she had a work trip, that her sister would watch the kids, then changed her mind and brought them anyway. The night of my birthday party, everything was in place. Close friends arrived at 6:30. Emma stood next to me. Marcus was there. My lawyer was there. Richard was nervous, kept checking his phone, asked why I'd invited so many people, said he thought this was supposed to be intimate. I wanted to make a statement. I told him. 50 is a big milestone. At 7:15, the doorbell rang. Richard answered it. I watched from across the room as his face went white. Jennifer stood on the doorstep, wearing a black cocktail dress, her son and daughter on either side of her, looking confused. Richard tried to close the door. Jennifer pushed past him, walked into the living room, looked around at all the guests, then looked at me. "You must be Catherine?" "Yes." "And you must be Jennifer." The room went silent, everyone staring. Richard frozen in the doorway. I smiled at Jennifer. "Thank you for coming. Richard, would you like to introduce your other wife and children to our guests? Or should I?" He couldn't speak, just stood there, mouth open, face red. So I did it for him. "Everyone, this is Jennifer Miller, Richard's partner of 13 years, and these are their children, Mason and Lily, ages 12 and 9. They live in Denver, where Richard has been maintaining a second home and a second family for over a decade, while being married to me. Chaos. People started talking all at once. Richard's mother screaming, friends pulling out their phones, Emma crying, Jennifer standing in the middle of it all looking shell-shocked. Richard finally found his voice. "Catherine, please. Let me explain. Explain. You've had 13 years to explain. I gave you 6 months after I found out to come clean. You didn't. So now everyone knows. But I love you. You love me so much you built an entire second family, fathered 2 children, bought a house with another woman, split your time between 2 lives for 13 years. That's love, Richard. That's sociopathic behavior. I didn't want to hurt anyone. Then you shouldn't have married 2 women. Technically, he'd only married me. I found out later Jennifer thought they were common law married in Denver. They weren't. But she'd believed they were committed, that they were building a life together. Richard tried to leave. I stopped him. "You're not going anywhere. Sit down. Everyone sit down. I have more to show you." I pulled out the evidence. Printed copies for everyone. Financial records showing Richard funneling money to Denver. Tax fraud claiming the house as a business expense. Insurance policies. School records. Photos spanning 13 years. I'd organized it all into neat folders, one for each guest, like party favors. Everyone got to see the full scope of Richard's deception. His mother cried. Said she'd never known. Richard's best friend called him a monster. Our neighbors were horrified. Jennifer's sister looked ready to kill him. The kids, Mason and Lily, just looked confused, scared. I felt terrible for them. None of this was their fault. Emma took them to another room, gave them snacks, tried to shield them from the worst of it. Richard sat on the couch, head in his hands, silent. My lawyer stood up, had everyone's attention. "I'd like to read a brief statement on Catherine's behalf. She filed for divorce yesterday. She's seeking full custody of all marital assets. Richard will be required to pay child support for Mason and Lily. Jennifer is also filing a civil suit for fraud and emotional damages. Additionally, Catherine will be reporting the tax fraud to the IRS. Richard could face criminal charges." Richard looked up. "You're destroying me. You destroyed yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows what you did." The party ended shortly after. Guests left quickly. Awkward goodbyes, promises to call. Jennifer and I exchanged numbers. She took the kids home. Richard tried to talk to me. I told him to leave. He's been staying in a hotel ever since. The divorce is ongoing. Richard's fighting for the house. My lawyer laughs every time. Says he has no case. The evidence is overwhelming. He committed fraud. He lied for over a decade. No judge will side with him. Jennifer is suing him separately for emotional damages, for the years she spent believing they had a future together, for the lies he told her kids. Her lawyer says she has a strong case. The IRS is investigating. The tax fraud charges could mean prison time. Richard could lose everything. His job found out. Fired him for ethics violations. Corporate sales requires trust. He demonstrated he has none. His mother won't speak to him. His friends have all cut contact. Emma refuses to see him, says she can't look at him without feeling disgusted. Mason and Lily, the Denver kids, are in therapy. trying to understand why their dad lied, why they have a half-sister they never knew about, why their whole life was built on deception. Jennifer and I have become unlikely friends. We meet for coffee once a month, compare notes, support each other. Our kids have met, Emma and Mason and Lily. It's awkward, but they're trying. They didn't choose this. Neither did we. Richard has tried to reach out, emails, letters, voicemails, all saying the same thing. He loves both families. He never meant to hurt anyone. He just couldn't choose. So he didn't. Lived both lives. Thought he could keep it going forever. My therapist says he's a narcissist. That people like Richard don't think the normal rules apply to them. That he genuinely believed he could maintain two families indefinitely without consequences. That when he got caught, he'd be forgiven because he's charming and successful, and people always forgave him before. But not this time. I'm not forgiving him. Jennifer's not forgiving him. Emma's not forgiving him. His mother's not forgiving him. He burned every bridge, destroyed every relationship, all because he wanted two lives and thought he was smart enough to manage both. He wasn't. The divorce will be final in 3 months. I'm keeping the house, the retirement accounts, everything we built together in 28 years. Richard gets nothing except the obligation to support the children he fathered in Denver, as he should. Jennifer's lawsuit will take longer, but her lawyer is confident. Richard will likely owe her hundreds of thousands in damages, between the divorce, the lawsuit, and the IRS investigation. Richard is financially ruined. He'll spend years paying back what he owes, living in a small apartment, working whatever job will hire him after all this. I don't feel bad for him. He made his choices. Now he lives with the consequences. My birthday party became legendary in our social circle. People still talk about it. The night Catherine exposed her husband's secret family in front of everyone. Some people think I was cruel, that I should have handled it privately, that humiliating him publicly was too much. I disagree. Richard had humiliated me for 13 years, every time he chose Jennifer over me, every time he missed an event because he was with his other family, every time he lied to my face. That was humiliation. I just made sure everyone else saw it too. Emma asked me if I regret the way I handled it, if I wish I'd confronted him privately, given him a chance to explain before going nuclear. I told her no. If I'd confronted him privately, he would have lied, manipulated, made promises he wouldn't keep, begged for forgiveness while continuing the double life. This way there was no room for lies, no chance for him to spin the story, just the truth laid bare for everyone to see. She asked if I ever loved him. Of course I did. For 28 years I loved him completely, trusted him, built a life with him. That's what makes the betrayal so devastating. He didn't just lie to me. He stole decades of my life, made me believe in something that was never real, and I asked if I'll ever trust anyone again. I don't know. Maybe. Someday. But not for a long time. Right now I'm focused on rebuilding, rediscovering who I am without Richard, creating a life that's truly mine, not shared with a man who was living two lives. Jennifer's doing the same. She's dating again, slowly, carefully, says she'll never ignore red flags again, will never blindly trust someone who travels constantly. We laugh about how we both should have known, how obvious the signs were in retrospect. But hindsight is perfect. In the moment, we were just living our lives, trusting our partner, believing the man we loved was who he said he was. Richard tried to friend request Emma on social media last week. She blocked him, sent me a screenshot, said he's pathetic. I agree. Mason and Lily are doing better. Still processing everything, but they're resilient. Kids are. They're angry at their dad, confused about their identity, but they have good support systems. Jennifer, their aunt, therapists, and now Emma, who's become a sort of older sister figure. The blended family we never planned. It's messy and complicated and sometimes painful, but we're making it work, because we're the ones left dealing with the fallout of Richard's choices. We're the ones picking up the pieces. So we're doing it together. And Richard. He's alone. Exactly what he deserves. Thanks for listening. Subscribe if you believe betrayal deserves exposure. Comment your own stories of discovering lies. Share if this resonated. See you next time. What I didn't tell you yet is everything that happened in those 6 months between discovering Richard's secret and the birthday party. The surveillance, the planning, the moments I almost broke. Because finding out your husband has a secret family isn't something you process overnight. It rewires your entire understanding of reality. The first week after Marcus showed me the evidence, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Just lay in bed replaying 28 years of marriage, trying to figure out which parts were real and which were lies. Every business trip, every late night, every time Richard said, "I love you." Were any of those moments genuine, or was I just the wife he kept around for appearance while his real life happened in Denver? Emma came home from Seattle immediately. I'd called her crying, told her everything over the phone. She caught the next flight, sat with me for 3 days while I fell apart, asked me what I wanted to do. I told her I didn't know. Part of me wanted to confront Richard immediately, scream, throw his things on the lawn, call Jennifer and tell her everything, but Emma said to wait. Think it through. Make a plan. Don't give him a chance to manipulate the narrative. She was right, so I waited, and I started investigating on my own. I created fake social media accounts, friended Jennifer's friends, her family, started piecing together their life. Her Facebook posts went back 13 years, photos of Richard at family events, Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas mornings, beach vacations, all while I thought he was on business trips. She'd caption them with things like, "So grateful for this man," or "Best dad ever," or "Family is everything." The comments from her friends and family showed they all believed Richard was her partner, her committed long-term partner, father of her children. Nobody mentioned a wife back home, because Richard had told everyone Jennifer's life that he was divorced, that his ex-wife was cordial but distant, that he had a daughter named Emma from that marriage, but the relationship had ended years ago. Clean, simple, a man who'd moved on and built a new life. I found Jennifer's sister's Instagram, public account, thousands of photos, including ones of Richard at her wedding 5 years ago, walking Jennifer down the aisle as her date, giving a toast about how lucky he was to have found Jennifer after his difficult divorce. The toast was on video. I watched it 20 times. He sounded so sincere, so genuine, talking about second chances and new beginnings, all while still married to me, while coming home to me every week, while planning our anniversary trip to Italy. I wanted to vomit. I tracked down the Denver kids' school, found their sports team websites. Richard was listed as an emergency contact, as Mason's soccer coach for 3 seasons. There were photos of him at tournaments, team dad of the year. Everyone loved him, parents, kids, coaches. He was involved, present, a good father to those children. Meanwhile, Emma had spent her teenage years barely seeing him. He'd missed her dance recitals, her debate competitions, her high school graduation ceremony he'd almost skipped because of a work emergency in Denver. That work emergency was Mason's 8th birthday party. I found the photos, Richard in a party hat, cutting cake, playing pin the tail on the donkey, while Emma walked across a stage alone, wondering where her father was. The betrayal wasn't just romantic, it was paternal. He'd chosen the Denver kids over Emma for years, and she'd never known why. When I told her about Mason and Lily, she cried, not because she was jealous of them, because she finally understood why her dad had always been absent. It wasn't work. It was them. Another family he'd prioritized over her. That realization broke something in Emma. The father she'd idolized despite his absence. The man she'd made excuses for. Defended when I'd complained he traveled too much. He'd been choosing his other children over her. Deliberately. Every single time. I spent hours on the phone with Emma processing it. She was angry in a way I'd never seen. Said she wanted to confront him immediately. Tell him she knew. That she'd never forgive him. I asked her to wait, to trust me. That I had a plan that would make sure Richard faced consequences for everything. Not just the affairs, not just the secret family, but the years of lying to everyone who loved him. She agreed to wait, but barely. Meanwhile, I had to keep living with Richard, pretending I didn't know, acting normal. That was the hardest part. He'd come home from Denver cheerful, relaxed. tell me about his week, the clients he'd met, the deals he'd closed, all lies mixed with just enough truth to seem credible. And I'd smile, nod, ask follow-up questions, pretend I believed him. Some nights he'd initiate sex. I couldn't. Made excuses, headaches, exhaustion, work stress. He didn't push, just rolled over and went to sleep. Probably relieved he didn't have to perform for me too. I wondered how he managed it, sleeping with two women, maintaining emotional intimacy with both, remembering which lies he'd told to whom. It must have been exhausting, but Richard had always been good at compartmentalizing. At work, he was the charming salesman. At home, he was the devoted husband. In Denver, he was the family man. He'd built entire personas for different parts of his life, and he'd maintained them flawlessly for 13 years. That's what scared me most. Not the affair. Affairs happen. People make mistakes. But this wasn't a mistake. This was calculated, systematic. A decade plus of deliberate deception across every area of his life. That level of lying isn't a mistake. It's a personality trait. My therapist asked what I'd do if Richard had come clean voluntarily, if he'd woken up one day and confessed everything, begged forgiveness. Would I have tried to work through it? I said no, not because of the affair itself, because of the years of lies, because he'd fathered 2 children with another woman while married to me, because he'd stolen 13 years of my life, making me believe in a marriage that was never real. There's no coming back from that. No amount of couples counseling fixes that level of betrayal. So I finalized my plan. The birthday party, public exposure, complete destruction of his reputation. Some people would think it was cruel, vindictive. Maybe it was. But Richard had taken everything from me. My sense of reality, my ability to trust. 13 years I could have spent building an authentic life. Instead, I'd been living a lie. So yes, I wanted him to suffer, not physical pain, but the loss of everything he valued, his reputation, his relationships, his financial security, his image as a good man. I wanted the world to see him as he really was, a liar, a fraud, a man who'd built his life on deception. And the birthday party was perfect. Public enough that he couldn't spin the narrative. Intimate enough that everyone who mattered would be there. His mother, his friends, our neighbors, Emma, all the people whose opinions he cared about, and Jennifer, the other woman who deserved to know the full truth. I'd debated telling Jennifer beforehand, warning her, but I decided against it. If I told her weeks early, she might confront Richard. He'd deny it, gaslight her, convince her I was crazy. Then he'd know I knew, and he'd have time to prepare, hide assets, manipulate the situation. No, Jennifer needed to find out the same way I had, with undeniable proof, in a moment where Richard couldn't lie his way out. So I invited her to the party, made it seem professional, let her think it was a networking opportunity. And I waited. Those last 3 weeks before the party were surreal. Richard was excited, kept talking about how much fun the party would be, how proud he was of me for turning 50, how much he loved me. Every word felt like a knife. But I smiled, thanked him, pretended I believed him. Emma came home 2 days before the party, helped me set up, put up decorations, arranged the catering. The whole time we barely spoke, just worked in silence, both knowing what was coming. The night before, I almost canceled, almost decided it was too cruel, that I should handle it privately. But then Richard came home from Denver, kissed me hello, told me he'd missed me, showed me a photo on his phone he'd meant to delete. Him and Lily at a father-daughter dance the night before. My husband, at a school dance, with his secret daughter, while I'd been home alone planning his destruction. And I knew I was doing the right thing. He deserved everything that was coming. The party itself was exactly as brutal as I'd planned. Richard's face when he opened the door and saw Jennifer, the way the room went silent when I introduced her, his mother's scream, the chaos. I'd imagined it 1,000 times. Reality was even better, because Richard couldn't lie, couldn't manipulate, couldn't charm his way out. The evidence was there, Jennifer was there. The timeline was undeniable. He just stood there, broken, exposed, exactly what he deserved. People ask me if I regret it, if I wish I'd handled it differently. I tell them no. Richard had humiliated me for 13 years. Every day of his double life was a humiliation I didn't know about. I just made sure he experienced that same humiliation publicly. For one night, he got to feel what I felt: the shock, the betrayal, the realization that everyone you trusted knew something you didn't. Except his lasted one night. Mine lasted years. So no, I don't regret it. And I never will. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you believe liars deserve exposure. Comment if you've ever exposed a cheater. Share if this resonated. See you next time.